Hey everyone, and welcome to another Tone Tips Tuesday video. Today we're going to be walking through wiring up this very interesting pickguard here. The customer sent us this pickguard and we have built the pickup set and we have it just about ready to start the wiring process. So rather than focus on one specific part, we're actually going to walk you through wiring this thing up. And there's a lot of different options. We've got a couple mini switches here. We have a volume and a tone and a 5-way switch. And we have a humbucker, a strat, and a tele pickup all in one. So let's jump over to the bench and we'll walk through this wiring together. Okay, over here on the bench, we've got everything loaded in. We're just gonna kind of have a fixed camera shot here. Again, we're walking through this as we go, so any surprises that come up, you're gonna see them, and if we need to pause the camera and restart again, we will. But we're gonna talk through just how to approach some different wiring like this, and you'll be able to see a lot of different things in one pickguard, so we thought it would be a great example. So we've got everything preloaded. We've got the 5-way switch. We put new pots in there. Those were the existing pots from the customer needed some work, so we got new pots ready to go. We're going to use their mini toggles. So that was the humbucker split, and then this one is the add neck switch. So that way we'll be able to use the tele bridge, and then we have our Anthem Plus neck here, and kind of going for the all black look, as you can see there. One thing you probably noticed looking at this guard, these screws for the humbucker are sticking way too far up. Many guitar routes are not long enough for that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just clip those leads. It's a good idea to wear some safety goggles, as the bottom part of those springs are going to go, the screws are going to go flying with your cutter there. So we've got that set. I do want to make sure that when I'm wiring this that I'm marking the pickups that so I know which one is which. In this case, we know that anything that has this black wire is going to be from the humbucker, but we do have two different cloth wire pickups, so I will just make myself a mark. Usually I'll mark the bridge pickup, and we're just going to put like just a little dash on that. So I know the bridge pickup is the one that's marked, because we are going to want to neatly tuck those wires. That's usually the first thing I do, is kind of come up with a game plan. And I've got a really creaky chair, so you're going to have to deal with that. I'm sorry about that in advance. So we're going to route these wires in a way that they will fit through the cavity. Now, we haven't seen this customer's cavity, so we don't know exactly where it's going to be. But typically, if you put the wires down the center of the pickups, that's probably a good idea. And because we have this bridge pickup here, sometimes I'll leave a little bit of room on that neck pickup, and we'll just take and put a little bit of tape around that connection there, so you can see, just keeping our wires as neat as possible. It's a little bit hard sometimes with these humbuckers, but we know that'll get pressed down, or that will probably just sit in the bottom of the cavity. So we never know everything is marked. We're going to need to ground now our single coil pickup, so our Strat middle, and then our custom tele bridge. And we're using the vintage custom Strat in the middle on this. It would be really fun to throw these in a guitar and get a chance to listen to them, but we'll do just a simple tap test at the end, because we want to just get this guitar back out to the customer as soon as possible. So first things first, we're going to ground these wires. And this particular customer had some other parts we're going to use. He had you can see you've got the little ground wire to the body. This is most likely a body connector that would be screwed down. And there was another ground wire as well that will hook up. They probably have this to some kind of, I don't know if it looks like they did have a tremolo on this, so that may be the ground wire to the tremolo. So we'll re-add those at the very end. So if you send us something that is, you want us to use some of the parts, we'll let you know if we're able to use the parts. A lot of times we can't, if they, obviously if they don't work, or if we would prefer to just start from zero, we'll let you know on that. In this case, we were able to reuse a couple of those things. So I'm going to take a couple angled pliers here, and we're just going to twist the braids on those ground wires to get them together. And then we'll throw in a little bit of solder there. It's a good idea on these to use tweezers. I'm probably going to go ahead and shift the camera angle just a little bit lower so you can see kind of from the side, and I'll try to work around that. But we'll finish up this first couple solder joints here. So we've got this lined, again, where we're comfortable, where we feel like the pickup route is probably, the electronics and the pickups are routed through there. probably feel safe to go ahead and put this down here. We get some heat on our solder, and we're going to ground these to the back of the volume pot. So we get some good solder flow in there, and we've got our ground. All right, so a little bit better angle here. You can see where we have grounded that wire to the pot. And then we have our 2 wires from the neck, from the middle and the bridge pickup ready to go there. A lot of times I do have a little bit of a method. Sometimes I'll bounce around and move between different parts of the wiring. So as I start to organize the wiring, I'll jump over and address some different areas. So this is a single volume, and we have the master tone as well. So we're going to get the existing pot. So this was our existing cap set in here. This was a cap that was in this guitar already. We're going to go ahead and put it back in there. And we've got plenty of length on this thing, so we're going to trim it down just a little bit and try to get it to just sit in there a little bit more cleanly if we can. We'll slide that in. And again, just the master tone configuration. So we're going to get these leads. It looks like a capacitor from all parts there that we were throwing in. So we'll get this thing in there for the tone, and then we'll connect not only that, but then we're going to connect the ground between the 2 pots as well. So this will give you just a little bit better angle so you're seeing kind of how we're working through there. We've got a little excess on those wires, so we're going to get our little tweezers and cut those little pieces off there. All right, so now we've got to make sure there is a ground connection between these 2. We might be able to get away with it because this is copper shielded, but I would always like to have that extra ground connection from the volume to the tone, and you're going to need to have that between however many pots that you have. So we're going to take a little length of wire, and we're going to keep this as the bare wire here. I'm going to take the outer shield off of that. And then we're going to just kind of come kind of at an angle here. Hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing there, that ground wire. We want to avoid the other lug of the tone pot. We can push that back just a little bit if we need to. So we're going to go for something like that. Now this may be something where we have to do in multiple steps because as you can see it's kind of trying to move around on us, but we're going to make sure that we have ground contact not only on the back there of the pot, but then through the lug of the pot. And then we're going to go down to the side of the tone pot just to, again, kind of keep everything out of the way. And we'll use our tweezers again just to hold that connection there as we get the solder joint going. All right, so now the pots are grounded together. We'll probably want to focus a little bit back on the switch here. I'll try to continue to rotate this as well so you can see all these different steps. So we're going to shorten this up just a little bit and do little segments on each part of the guitar. That way we're able to complete this project and you can see in a little bit better detail exactly what we're working on. All right, so looking down at the selector switch, again, apologize for my creaky chair. I should have thought about that a little bit more before we started here. We're going to work on the 5-way switch. We're going to connect the output of the 5-way switch through the volume and then to the tone pot. So we're going to go, I'm doing this a little bit backwards from the way I normally will orient this, but when you're putting in a 5-way or 3-way switch, you're going to want the lugs that hang over to point back towards the pots. You can find a lot of these diagrams online, and we don't really have a diagram that shows this exact configuration. So what we're doing is kind of piecing together a couple different diagrams, and you may have to do that depending on how complicated you want to get on your wiring. This is the neck-on, how to wire a neck-on switch. So we're following this one. Usually have all these memorized, but this is just another place you can look online to follow that. So we've got our mini toggle down here that we will follow that, and then corresponding wires will go up to the 5-way switch there. So it's always a good idea if you're a little bit uncomfortable to reference those diagrams often. It allows you to make sure that you're not making any kind of weird mistakes when you're wiring things up. So we'll get these two hooked up, and then we'll talk about the rest, hooking up the rest of the pickups, and then jumping into this, this tone area. All right, over at the tone pot, we've got our output from the switch. We're going to run it through the input of the pot and then into the middle lug for the tones. So it's coming through the volume into the middle of the tone, and that will be our, in effect, master tone. If you ever want to do this with a strat, that's a great way to approach it. All right, next up we're going to make sure the middle and the bridge pickups are soldered together. So from the other side of the switch here, you're going to have your neck, your middle, and your bridge pickups. So these are the hot wires from those. So we haven't hooked up the neck pickup, which is the humbucker. Kind of wait until the end because we got to do a lot of wire stripping for that. So now in this step, we're just going to make sure that we have our bridge pickup down here soldered in, and then our middle pickup soldered in. So we'll go ahead and put in the jack wires now, and I'll show you that. All right, so now we're going to tackle this humbucker. We know that we want to do, this middle one was the request for the split of the humbucker. So we need to have this 4-conductor wire from the humbucker stretched to here, and to here. So it's going to be one of those situations where we're going to have to strip this wire back pretty far because it's got to go 3 different, very different places. Now we're looking at, we have the green and white, which is going to be the coil split of the neck humbucker. We have the black on our color codes is going to be the hot, and then we have the red and the bare, which is going to be the ground. Okay, so we're going to focus on the coil splitting area here. This has several rows of poles, which we actually don't need, but these are here and we're going to use them. So to wire in the coil split, we're going to put the green and the white into the middle, and that is going to be the finish of each of the coils. And then the other thing we have to do is we're going to have to ground this as well. So we have to make sure this other side here is going to be grounded to our circuit or to our pot. And looking at the way that all these wires are sitting, we're going to have to do some creative taping at the end just to make sure everything looks nice and clean. So we've got a lot of cool things going on with this guard. I think it's going to sound really awesome and tons of tones on tap. So let's go over and work out that add neck mini toggle. All right, so we got our 2 wires hooked up at the add neck mini toggle. Again, you can see some diagrams on this online. It's very easy to add. You can add this to a push pull, but this happens to be the mini toggle. Nice to throw in just a couple different combinations if you have a 3 pickup guitar. All right, so we are just about done here. We've got everything in. We've got a little bit of extra cleanup on those wire runs. And again, we probably could have cut this one a little bit short. We still have a little bit of taping left to do to make sure everything is in one spot. We've got our ground wires hanging out. We'll probably tape this connection up here again to make it look a little bit cleaner. All right, so that was just a quick look at one of our more complicated wiring jobs that we've done in a little while, at least on a Pickguard. A lot of stuff going on there with the wiring. A lot of things we had to chase down, but I think the customer is really going to enjoy this. I think it's going to be a killer sounding set. Lots of options on tap, lots of tweakable tones with the mini toggles, not only the push-pull, but the add neck option. So if you're interested in doing something crazy, you have a project idea, shoot us an email, info@porterpickups.com, and thanks so much for watching.